Hi, we've had these two bikes here at the Classic Motorcycle channel for the past couple of weeks. We've got the Triumph Scrambler 1200X and the Triumph Scrambler 1200XE here. I'm going to be reviewing this one. I can't really contrast them because I'm too short to ride that one basically. So Alex has had that one and he's really enjoyed himself, I think. So this one, I've done about 700, 800 miles on it now, and I took it to Belgium and France. We've had all sorts of conditions with the rain, sun. I've done a little bit of off-roading, so I've done a little bit of everything with it. My overall impression of the bike is really good actually. I found it comfortable enough to ride for a long time, so I've done 23 hours and 17 minutes on this bike in the last week, and probably 250 miles in a day some of the days, and it's one of the few bikes that I would think would be tick enough boxes for me to have this as an only bike, possibly. Which is saying quite a lot, because usually I would like go, well, this is suitable for this, but I'd need another one. There's a cat, Merlin. So we'll go for some pros and cons of the bike. And we'll start at the front. The tyres are really good. They did me well for wet, twisty roads in France, Belgium. Done a little bit of dry off-roading, just gentle stuff. The brakes, you've got twin discs. I found them perfectly satisfactory. They're nice and sharp, responsive. It's a quick bike, and I always feel like if you've got a quick bike, you need decent brakes. Otherwise, it's not really a good idea going quick. Headlamp, I like the look of it. I don't know whether it's much good in the dark because it's summer solstice, so I haven't really needed to use it. The dials I found, well, it's not really a dial, it's a screen display. I found it really clear. You've got different modes which you can click through. This is my trip. Rev counter at the top, miles an hour, clearly displayed like that. I don't think it will scroll through things while it's asleep, but it's a bold display. I found it really easy to look at. I really like the levers. They're easy, not at all stressful. Both of them are adjustable. I've got small hands and they can dial in for me. That's on their closest setting. You can just wind them easily and they go back out. Mirrors are really nice and clear. They're set in a really convenient place. Start, stop. I got confused a couple of times and started putting the hazards on instead of the start button, but that's just because I'm not used to it being up here and down there. Tank, I really like the look of that. I like this clip. I like the old style cap that's also got the lockable bit underneath. It's got a really good range on the fuel tank. I was getting easily 250 kilometers out of the tank. That's like, I don't know, 180 miles roughly, kind of. And it still wasn't on empty, so there's plenty there. It's very comfortable to ride. I was riding it for all day. Hardly any vibration through the handlebars, which for me is a really important thing. I like the styling of this exhaust. It's nice and it's kind of unique. I haven't seen another thing that looks quite like that at the minute. Pegs, they're in a suitable place for me. Sometimes I find they get in the way when, on other bikes, not necessarily this one, on other bikes when I want to put my legs down, the pegs are actually where I want to put my ankles, and having short legs, you lose distance in your legs. The seat is comfortable enough that I was not in discomfort riding it for all day. Possibly slightly sharp here for me, but I think again because I've got short legs, they were kind of like leaning on that bit quite a lot. My legs sit right down here on the exhaust and on the engine, and I was ending up getting really hot here to the extent that at the end of the day I'd have like red patches where it just got too hot basically. Also, when it was raining and I was wearing waterproofs, I wasn't sure that that wasn't going to melt my waterproofs, which was interesting. It was okay. I think probably if you've got longer legs, they're going to be more up here and it's not going to be an issue. So coming further back, the suspension, I didn't touch it. It was fine. I felt like it was really comfortable and suitable for me. The front isn't adjustable. The back has got adjustable preload. The grip rail has got the little notches here that you can attach your straps to or whatever it is you want to put on there. I put some rock straps on there and tied a bag on the back when I was touring. I found that really convenient. So the mud guards are really satisfactory on the bike. I didn't end up getting splattered from them, and I feel like that's what mud guards should do. The wheels are spoked, which I like the look of, but the spokes are set further out than some. So the tyres are actually tubeless, which I'm a fan of because it means if you get a puncture, you can repair it roadside and carry on your journey. Obviously you can with a tube, but it's a little bit more of a mission. So I often moan about mud guards, but this one seems to have done its job. It seems to be long enough that you're not ending up with a load of rubbish up your radiator. So that's a good one for me. And the radiator also has this guard on the top of it, which you can clean out. So I like that. That makes sense, because otherwise you're trying to blast mud out of your radiator. Okay, moving on. The engine is a 1200. It's a big lump. It is kind of heavy, but it's so torquey. You can do your overtakes. It's quick riding it because you've got speedy acceleration and deceleration, and that actually counts for a lot when you're on the road. You don't need to second guess your overtakes, but also it's not crazy enough that you have to ride like a lunatic. I've said before on things that I often want a smaller engine so that I don't lose my license, because sometimes you're tempted to push it and you don't find the fun in it until you're doing something slightly silly. But this is overall fun, and just the torque and the power is there without having to engage that craziness. So while we were taking some photos, I realised there's a few bits that I didn't mention. One's the colour of it. I really like this black colour. I like black bikes, and that's also why I'm not that keen on the brown seat, because I'd like it to be black. You can get different colour tanks and they are more snazzy. I already mentioned that this is a little understated. It's not over styled that it's like not so eye-catching that everyone has to come and talk to you about it. But if you've got a different colour tank, it does make it stand out much more. The other thing is, I didn't mention the exhaust and the noise of the bike. It sounds really good. It's not overly loud that I feel like I have to wear earplugs the whole time, which I do tend to a lot of the time, and then I have to shout at people when I want to communicate. So from the front it doesn't sound too bad. From the back it sounds really good and loud and noisy. So yeah, that's cool. I like that. So it's a big bike, it's a 1200, and I expect it to be harder to manoeuvre and less flickable around the country lanes and things than it is. It's surprisingly easy to move about. I think partly it's because it's got a low centre of gravity compared to some bikes, and it's got big bars, which obviously help. They're wide, and it feels like a smaller bike than it is, particularly off-roading. A lot of people are saying, it's only a scrambler by name, and I don't agree with that, because I've taken it off-road. I'm not like an expert off-roader. I don't really know what I'm doing actually, but I managed it. I didn't end up in a bush or anything, so I think it can do quite a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect of it. With the styling, I like these brushed alley accents. I find that they pick out the little areas of the bike, and I like that touch on it. This side looks a little bit bland, and I just find it sort of, from the point of view of riding, I found it had quite a long first gear for some of the off-roading I was doing. If you're going along, it's okay. If you're trying to do a little bit more just slow moving around a field or something, it's got a long first gear, and I was finding it's either trying to pull away all the time, or you're having to try to brake or slip the clutch all the time. It's okay. And I can see that it's mostly set up for road use with a bit of scrambling, but it was just something I noticed. There's the USB port. It's tucked in there, and I presume you could keep your phone in there. Mine has a case on it, and I'll do that in a minute. Mine has a case and it doesn't actually fit in there. So also, I use my phone as a sat nav, which isn't much use with the USB port here, and So I guess you either have to run a cable direct from the battery or from here through and then find a route up there. Someone pointed this out to me on a previous review, that it has these tags that you release like this, and there's some on the back there which just undo, and then when you put the seat back on they just stick out, and you can attach your sandwiches to them with a piece of string.
It's really good.
It is. I haven't found a toolkit on this bike. I think there isn't one. Sometimes you may find an Allen key or something under here, but I find this section here sticks out a bit more than I would like, partly from the aesthetics. It just is a little bit sticky out. Also, these are a little bit prone, either if it's parked up and you kind of trying to walk around it, they're just in the way and feel like they're going to snap off very easily. And I was parked up somewhere and an old lady was hanging on to these while she walked around them like it was a handle, and I was being like, I don't think that's a handle. I was finding there was quite a bit of vibration coming through these foot pegs. They're comfortable enough and they're nice and solid to have your feet on. At the end of riding all day, my lower legs were feeling a bit hot and achy just because they'd been shaken a little bit. I've got decent boots with Vibram soles, which are again supposed to take up some of that vibration, so I kind of felt if that wasn't taking it up, maybe there was some kind of adjustment to be made there. They have got the rubbers on them at the moment, which you can take off if you're going off-roading. I guess there'd probably be even more vibration coming through that without the rubber on there. This bike has got a belly pan. It is made of plastic, and I feel like it may not really do a huge amount other than keep a little bit of gravel and maybe some dirt from underneath. I think actually if you were off-roading and bashed anything, that'd probably shatter. So on ground clearance, you may notice that there's this slightly banana-shaped gear shifter here, and I did that by mistake, getting stuck in a rut when we were out on a green lane a few days ago.
Are you stuck?
I think I'm wedged in the ground. Oh,
Gear lever.
it's properly bent. It did actually bend all the way around and tuck underneath the peg here, which then ended up stuck in first, trying to get up a slope. It's like first or kind of neutral if you held the clutch in. So we did a bit of a roadside unbending jobby on that. So sorry about that, Triumph, but it does highlight why I'm saying that this isn't really that high.
Worth saying, Lana, that was literally the limit that we found at the end of the day after riding all day.
This is true, it was the limit. We'd done some kind of dirt tracks, through some woods, some fords, little streams going through around the edges of fields and ruts, and this was up a slope in some very deep ruts, and there wasn't really an option to go around that bit. There were hedges on both sides, so tying into the ground clearance is my ability at reaching the ground from the seat height, which for me this is only just about manageable really in a safe manner, as in being able to reach the ground to keep it stable whilst doing something slightly more technical. It's fine for going around on the roads or in town. There's times when I've had to be conscious of which camber we're at, just so I can get the right foot down that's going to be able to reach. But to make a better ground clearance, you'd have to have a higher seat height, which then would put this out of my range of being confidently comfortable. Just a little con, I don't really like this seat being brown. I'd prefer it to be black because there's nothing else on this bike that is brown. Something that I found quite frustrating when I was off-roading, you have the option to turn off the traction control, and to do so you have to be at a standstill and you go through the main menu, scroll through it, and every time you turn the ignition off you have to then reset it, which does make sense, but it's a lot of clicking through, and it takes up some time when you just want to get on and carry on with your ride. So having looked at the 1200X in a bit of detail, because that's the one I've been riding, we'll just have a quick look at this XE version, and some of the differences will be a little bit more obvious than others. Some of them, just at first glance, the ground clearance is greater. I already mentioned that was a little bit of an irritation on that one, but with that is a higher seat height. I can't manage that seat height it's just too high. The X has got the, I think it's 820mm. This is 870mm, so you're kind of this much higher. And the other one's only just manageable for me, unfortunately, because I really like this bike. You've got better forks on this on the front. You've got an adjustable suspension setting there. You've got different brake calipers. There's the Brembo ones. You've got a different display. You've got the handguards. Summer, so it doesn't matter too much for me at the minute. You've got slightly different controls. You've got more brushed aluminium on this. You've got metal mud guards as opposed to the plastic ones. There's a bit more trim. This one seems to sort of tick more boxes. You've also got the folding end tips for your gear and brake. So I've really, really enjoyed this bike. I could quite easily see myself having one. I'm sad that I'm not tall enough to have the XE, basically, because I think that ticks even more boxes than this one does. So I think this could be a commuter bike. It could just be a fun bike. You could do touring. It's just comfortable enough to do whatever you want to on it. And yeah, you can do some lanes, you can do some tracks. Of course, it's not a designated off-roader, but it can definitely scramble. So I think it does live up to its name. And I think they've done a good job with it. So thank you very much, Triumph, and I've really enjoyed having this.